welcome to my channel. Very first review, we are reviewing Richard Laymons' All Hallows Eve. There will be spoilers, I'm just going to say, because there's no way I can vent the frustrations that I've had reading this book without there being spoilers. So, you've been warned. Yeah. Richard Laymon. I have to say, it's the first Richard Laymon book that I've read, and so far, I'm not impressed. I've heard good things. My sister gave me this book to read, said that it was great, I'd love it, and it did not blow my skirt up, I have to say. So I'll read you the blurb at the back of this book. Nothing unusual ever happens in Ashburg until a local family are horribly mutilated and left to die in their own home. Since that night, the old Sherwood house has stood dark and abandoned, a constant reminder of the horrific killings. But when mysterious invitations begin to arrive announcing a party to be held there, nobody thinks it's a joke. After all, on All Hallows Eve, everyone wants to play in the house of death. Okay, so that's the blurb. When we start the book, there's this little old lady who lives next to the Sherwood murder house, and she thinks that there's somebody sneaking around the house. She thinks she sees a light. She's worried that it's kids that are spray painting the place. So she calls to the sheriff's office and asks the sheriff if he'll come and take a look around just to ease her mind. So he does, and he gets killed, as does the little old lady. And the way that it's done is written so well, I'm absolutely hooked from the first chapter. It just sucked me in straight away. So that's a bit of an odd opening considering that I didn't like the rest of the book, but bear with me, there is a reason. So we meet Eric Prince, who is one of the main characters of the book. And the way that we meet Eric is that he walks in on his mum's boyfriend, who happens to be the deputy to the sheriff, called Sam. He walks in on Sam, who's having a whiz in the family loo. So he doesn't know that his mum is seeing Sam, and it's all very embarrassing. He walks in, see this deputy sheriff bare-assed and naked, and Eric is not best pleased that his mum is seeing Sam and that she's not together with his father, who he doesn't know raped his mum. So if you can follow that bit, he's got daddy issues, and but his dad is a complete psychopath. He threatened to basically murder his mother if she ever told anyone, so he got away with raping her, and Eric is the produce of that encounter, which is awful, and it's also messed his mum up. Sam finds out that the sheriff has gone missing, so he goes to look for him. So nobody knows that the sheriff's been murdered, and he finds his body chopped up at the sheriff's house. It's really quite horrific because the body is in the bath and the head is in the toilet. So when he goes, again, I don't know what, maybe he's got a bladder problem, to go to the toilet, lifts the lid of the loo, and lo and behold, the sheriff's head's in there. So he's a bit traumatised by that, and he spends the rest of the book trying to hunt down the sheriff's ex-wife, who was spotted in town on the night of the murder. So he doesn't know if she did it, but she's the most likely suspect because everybody loved the sheriff in town. Nobody has a grudge against him, except for his ex, and so he thinks that she could have done it, and the rest of the book he's trying to hunt her down. Lots of near misses where their paths have just crossed, but he goes looking for her, and that's his main plot point or storyline. We find out that Eric is being bullied by a kid called Nate at school. And Nate is a complete little shit. I mean, he's really awful. He's one of those bullies that haunts most schools, I should imagine. There's at least one Nate in every school. But this guy is horrific. But nobody likes Nate at this school. Eric hates him, the teachers hate him, the other students hate him, and he's only got one friend called Bill who tolerates him, I think, and he thinks that he's a bit of a twat, but, you know, he tolerates him himself because I think he kind of feels sorry for Nate in a way. So Bill's not so bad, but he is a bit weak because he lets Nate get away with a lot of the stuff that he does. But yeah, circling back to Eric, Eric does get bullied quite badly by Nate, and also by a teacher called Dunes, who is the vice principal, I believe. So he makes him do push-ups on the floor of the boys' toilets, and it's covered in wee, and so he has to do push-ups until his nose is almost touching the floor. And so he decides that Dunes is on his shit list, and he's going to hopefully come up square and teach him a lesson one day. So, we find that he's not having the best of times, Eric, bless him. People start receiving invitations for the mystery party. There's already the excitement, if you will, of the sheriff being murdered, and nobody knows who did it. Nobody saw anything. So that's the one mystery, and then the second mystery is that these invitations start arriving. Eric decides to invite a girl called Beth, who is friends with his crush, who's a cheerleader, and her name's Alicia. Well, they're both cheerleaders, but Beth's more wholesome and a bit chunky, and Alicia is more svelte. In the meantime, Sam, who is the deputy, develops a crush on a tarty receptionist at a motel during his investigation. He's already proposed to Eric's mum, so he's engaged, but he fantasizes about the receptionist, and the receptionist knows that he has a girlfriend, and he's proposed, but she leads him on still. That's why I don't like love triangles. I just really get so irate. I get so angry. It turns out that Eric is in touch with his father, and his father is the one behind the party. So if you recall, Eric's dad raped his mum, his poor mum, who's engaged to the deputy, who's thinking about cheating on her with some tarty receptionist. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on. It's quite a compelling book, and it's very well written, so I'm not slagging that off, but bear with me, I'll get to it. So turns out that Eric's in touch with his dad's behind the party, and his dad's encouraging Eric to invite people who've wronged him and the girl he fancies. So but he says to Eric to keep it all to himself and not let anybody know that this is what's happening, because it will ruin the surprise, and I think we can all guess what the surprise is going to be, considering that he's a psychopath. While this is all going on, there's another party that is being thrown by the cheerleader that Eric has a crush on. And she's a bit pissed off that there's a competing party that's being held, and she's trying to encourage all the kids to go to her party instead of the one at the murder house, which would obviously ruin Eric's plans to teach everyone a lesson and perhaps finally get together with the girl of his dreams. And Nate the bully, finds out about the party at the cheerleader's house, and decides that he's going to crash the party because he wasn't invited, neither was his friend Bill. Predictably, there's a fight that ensues. Nate starts throwing punches and shoving people. He spills his punch all over the floor. The cheerleader's mum's pissed off and says, party's over. All the boys pile on top of Nate and Bill, drag them outside, strip them naked and take their clothes, and then they decide, since the party's over, let's go to the murder house, there's still a party going on, and we can have some fun. And if these two decide that they want their clothes, they can come to the murder house and get them. Now, by this point, we're quite far into the story, and not a lot of the book is left, so I'm thinking, well, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of intrigue, there's lots of different storylines, and it's really quite an intriguing story. I love the way that it's written, and I'm kind of thinking, well, how in the hell is Richard Laymon going to wrap all of this up in such a short space of time? Because we've not got a lot of time left, and this is where I start getting quite angry. The party descends into chaos in practically 10 seconds. The kids arrive. The nasty teacher who was picking on Eric, he's at the party too. He discovers that Eric's dad is lurking in the shadows and has already piled a whole bunch of bodies into one of the spare rooms. It's mass pandemonium, and the kid's terrified. The dad starts killing people, and it's just crazy. I mean, and we only have a little bit of the book left, which is what really pissed me off. I'm thinking, well, he'd better be doing an award-winning job of tying all these loose ends together. Nate and Bill turn up in stolen clothes, so the two bullies turn up and they save the day. They knock out Eric's dad, they knock out Eric, who's about to rape Alicia. And then you turn the page, you're thinking, oh my god, there's all this craziness, what's going to happen? Turn the page, and you've got an 150 word, approximately, an epilogue that doesn't really wrap anything up properly. Eric's dad dies in surgery because I forget, but for some reason he needed surgery. The deputy ends up with the tarty receptionist. We don't know what happens to Eric. We don't know what happens to Nate and Bill. We don't know what happens to poor old Alicia. It just, that's the ending. We get to the crux of the excitement, the crux of the action, and then nothing. It just sort of comes to an end. I had so much hope for this book, and I think that's why I got so pissed off, because it was going so well, and then it felt like Richard Layman ran out of time, and so he just stopped, literally stopped, wrote 150 words, epilogue, and then that was it. There's an epilogue, and it just seemed like such a cop-out. We don't get any form of satisfying ending at all. Nothing. Really, really made me angry. So, you know, that's basically the ending of the book. That's what happens in All Hallows Eve by Richard Layman. And I read this book so that you don't have to. You're welcome.